Hey everyone, hope you're all having a great week so far. This video might be really random for some of you if you didn't hear about this, but just recently Insomniac Games recast the face model for Peter Parker from Spider-Man PS4, now for Spider-Man PS4 Remastered and Spider-Man PS5 going forward. And as someone who literally finally bought a PS4 for the first time just to play Spider-Man and then played it all the way through twice and had some of the best experiences gaming of my entire life, I was really shocked by this. It just came out of nowhere and was very sudden and seemed really unnecessary. This is obviously not going to ruin the experience for me or anything, but I decided kind of as a send-off to the version of Peter Parker that we all connected with, I would go ahead and paint the original likeness of Peter Parker because, I mean, I haven't gotten used to the new Peter Parker yet. It's still really jarring for me, even several days later, and so I'm trying to get there, but it isn't really happening yet. And to me, John Bubniak's face as Peter Parker for Spider-Man PS4 is still the version that I personally prefer. So I took an afternoon a couple days ago to paint his face, his likeness on a Lego minifigure head. And to those of you guys who saw How to Make Custom Minifigs episode 3, How to Paint Faces, you'll pretty much pick up on quite a few of the techniques that I'm using here. I'm pretty much going through the exact same process by identifying the very specific, almost like hoop-like curvature that John Bubniak has above his eyes. And so spent a little while recreating those two arches over the eyes. And so those turned out really well. Those arches kind of had to dig into the already pre-existing black part of the eyes a little bit to look right, and that turned out looking great. Once that was done, I decided to paint sort of like the baggy parts underneath his eyes. His eyes kind of like sag a little bit, and so I knew exactly how to recreate that specific look by just applying some chestnut paint underneath the base of each eye, and then just tearing away at those edges and just trying to perfect those corners, reintroduce additional paint where necessary, and eventually nail those markings. Now the eyebrows, I didn't exactly settle on a design before painting them. I just kind of looked at it and just went in. I wound up nailing the shape on the first eyebrow. Of course, I had to clean it up and refine it and recreate it on the other side, and it did not work out quite as well on the other side and took quite a few more attempts to recreate. But once the eyebrows were on there and I got a good look at it, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely starting to look like John Bubniak, and I was getting really happy with it already, and so I was excited to go ahead and start painting the mouth. Now, again, I didn't really have a specific design in mind for the mouth. I just was kind of winging it, and it took several attempts. I messed up the mouth a handful of times before I finally landed on the version that you see here, and of course, every part of the mouth had to be refined and cleaned up. Of course, edges were jagged, and I had to clean those areas up, all with additional tiny bits of paint. Finally, I added a couple more marks underneath the mouth and to the side using the exact same method I did for the bags underneath each eye, and those definitely turned out to be kind of crucial in completing the overall likeness. I was considering doing some marks like next to the eyes or maybe in between the eyes, but I knew this is exactly how I wanted the face to look, and if I added any more, it would probably take it a little bit too far. So I think I got pretty close to John Bubniak's likeness here, the original likeness of Peter Parker for Spider-Man PS4 2018. And in closing, I definitely want to mention how bizarre Insomniac's reasoning for the recast was. They basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, to bring us next-gen performances, they decided that they needed a different face model actor who more closely resembled the voice actor, Yuri Lowenthal. And Yuri Lowenthal also did the facial capture and all that stuff for the original Spider-Man PS4 game. And then they took John Bubniak and mapped his face onto Yuri Lowenthal, and that's been done in games for several years now. Naughty Dog with The Last of Us Part 2 has a range of characters where they do this, where you have the voice actors or the performance actors portraying the characters, and then they bring in someone completely separate who is the face model, and then that face is scanned onto the performance artists, and it worked incredibly well with some of the lead actresses for that game. They did it with Abby. Laura Bailey was the performance actress for that character, but then they mapped someone else entirely over her. So Insomniac kind of coming out of nowhere to say that going forward with next-gen performances, we now suddenly need an actor that resembles the voice actor or the performance actor was just kind of jarring and doesn't really add up. I know Insomniac Games is obviously not Naughty Dog. Maybe they don't have the same resources available. I don't know. And I'm no game designer, but it just kind of at face value sounds restrictive, right? Because game developers have been able to interchange people's faces for the longest time now with these games, and it's always looked incredible. Peter Parker looked incredible in Spider-Man PS4, was fully believable, and then The Last of Us Part 2 featured the most lifelike digital characters I have ever seen in my entire life, and all of these examples have face models that look completely different from the actor who was the voice and the overall performance of the character. So I thought this was all really strange, and after really connecting with John Bubniak's version of the character all throughout my initial 2 playthroughs of Spider-Man PS4, for them to now ask us to suddenly get used to an all-new looking version of the character, it's just looking at it from the outside in as the player, it all seems so unnecessary to me. John Bubniak's likeness as Peter Parker offered a really unique and distinct 23-year-old version of the character, and this version, I don't know that it necessarily looks like Tom Holland, but he definitely looks to be a little bit more on the young side, and I also don't really see how this new version is somehow giving us a better match to the performance, because you look at some of this footage and the face mapping actually looks more emotive, like there's more going on with the first version than this new Ben Jordan version. Maybe it's just me. Obviously, this is not going to ruin the experience for me. We will get used to the new version of Peter Parker. I just kind of wanted to paint this face as my send-off to the original version of the character in the first game, but I mean, hey, it is what it is now. They did it. It's done. I don't see them going back on it, and I guess that's okay. It could be worse. It's just really, really strange. Regardless, guys, I'm going to get back to work on my Mandalorian Season 2 customs. If you'd like to see the progress for those, it's always going up over on Patreon first, along with my exclusive long-form content series over there where I go even more in-depth on the making of my custom minifigures. So that's always available if you'd like to consider supporting the channel that way. Otherwise, of course, you can always find me over on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all those places, posting all my digital Photoshop edits and teasers for my custom minifigures once they're ready to be put in front of a camera, and those are always really fun for me to make. I hope I'll see you guys over there. Either way, thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. I will see you guys next time. Take care, stay safe, and keep creating.